the answers to how Joseph Smith's blasphemy. He says, I have more to boast than ever than any man I had. I am the only man that has ever been able to keep the whole church together since the days of Adam. A large majority of the whole have stood by me. Neither Paul, John, Peter, nor Jesus ever did it. I boast that no man ever did such works as I. That is incredible. That's very incredible.
You know that.
Well, it's from the History of the Church, Volume 6.
The history of the church is not Scripture.
Well, when Joseph Smith speaks, somebody's writing the stuff down,
Yeah,
right? He's not speaking into the air.
That, Hal? That would be my question.
Well, I mean, this is
simply not the views of Joseph Smith.
This is my 10 minutes.
And you know that.
This is my 10 minutes, right? So, people, this stuff is written down, okay? Stuff is documented, written down. Okay, if you want to go with that and you want to say this is one misquote, let's talk about other things.
Several misquotes.
Let's talk about other things. I wonder if you think that you want a question about what you can find in the Bible, and I have a question is Joseph Smith said there's men living on the moon who dress like Quakers and live nearly 1,000 years old. So he's going to go to the moon after he dies, and he's going to minister to these people living on the moon. I mean, I don't think that's in the Bible. I've never seen that in the Bible.
You have 2 minutes left.
Well, I guess for the final 2 minutes, I mean, I could go over a couple other quotes. Brigham Young says, "You must confess Joseph Smith as prophet." He that confesses not that Jesus has come in the flesh and sent Joseph Smith in the fullness of the gospel to this generation is not of God, but the Antichrist. And of course, what Joseph Smith says, and I highly doubt when Joseph Smith, in this discourse in the Journal of Discourses, that he was misquoted by saying, "My words were as good as Scripture."
You done? You
Yep.
have another
Okay.
minute.
Well, I guess my question is the charge of blasphemy, by Joseph Smith, who says that he's done more work than Jesus. I'd like to have an answer to that.
Well, are we going back and forth with questions at the end? Because I'd like to take my 10 minutes and then we do the questions. Because I don't want to spend my whole time answering your questions.
This
and I don't
was
have my 10 minutes.
This was my last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So
are we going back and forth at the end?
Well, if we have time permitting, I think you should start your 10 minutes now.
Yeah. Then I'll attempt to answer your questions, but I'm going to go through them very quickly, as fast as I can.
All right.
But you had mentioned translation, of the Joseph Smith's translation. We need to clarify that very quickly. Joseph Smith did not take the Bible and just go through and translate it from page to page. There are only certain scriptures that he translated through Revelation, and that were in question, or as I stated, with the 54 scholars not being sure of the meaning of some of the scriptures themselves and simply took a vote to come down to what it should read. Some of those scriptural references have been translated by Joseph Smith as well as others. But I don't want to give the impression, I don't know if Hal was either, I don't want to be unfair to him and speak for him, that Joseph Smith just went and translated the Bible. We use the King James Version of the Bible. It's here in front of me. And there's very limited scripture that was translated by Joseph Smith from the King James Version. And it has not changed the meaning or its intent. It's just to clarify. And I don't think that that's been argued even by other mainstream churches to this date. Hal is quoted, he said, from the Journal of Discourses, which are not by Joseph Smith. I think he misstated that unless I misheard him. Those are by Brigham Young, not by Joseph Smith. And Brigham Young was another prophet of the church after the death of Joseph Smith. As biblical teachings tell us that Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever, and he established his church with apostles and prophets. We continue that practice today. And the Journal Discourses are just opinion. They're no more than that. They're not scripture. They're not taught as revelation. They're not part of our Scripture, and they're not taught as beliefs in the church. It's just opinion. And if you're to tear down the church based on that, then we would have to discredit the Bible. We have many examples, even in the Bible, Old Testament alone, where prophets were not perfect and gave opinions that simply were never proven to be true. I think it was Jacob who tried to figure out a way to strike the cattle and went about trying to do certain things. We have Moses, I believe it was Moses who was chastised in drunkenness. We have David who was chastised for adultery. We have Lot who supposedly committed sins. Prophets have not been perfect in the Old or New Testament, to include Peter, who we know denied Christ, I think 3 times on the cock crowed. We have Judas the Iscariot, who ultimately betrayed him. I mean, to take away the good things that they did because they're imperfect, the only perfect person that walked this earth was Jesus Christ himself. And it's not to explain, because I still would defend the writings of Joseph Smith that were intended for Scripture. There's not one Scripture that Hal went into. The church uses as Scripture the King James Version of the Bible, and we have the Book of Mormon. And he didn't quote any Book of Mormon Scripture that he's arguing would be unsupported by the Bible or today's Christian beliefs. The Mormon Church also has modern-day revelation, which is written in what we have is called the Doctrine and Covenants. Hal did not quote anything from the Doctrine and Covenants, which is where the revelation goes. Additionally, you can see on TV every 6 months on the BYU channel, on DirecTV, and other sources online in the web. Every 6 months, the church does a conference, and where the leaders of the church speak, and they give revelation. And I would challenge Hal and anyone to watch those. If you want to know, to determine the church by the fruit it bears, the counsel that is given on families, on marriage, to the youth, is you can't put value on it. And I think if you were to watch it, you would feel the Spirit testifying that it's true. None of those have been quoted here by Al. Instead, he goes into journal discourses of opinions, and he actually had mentioned that Joseph Smith was a Mason. There are many Masons, and all who have members of different sects. I'm sure Baptist members have been Masons, and Masons have covenants of brotherhood, is my understanding. Not covenants with God. Very different. And to compare the church to the Masonic group, where in the organization is completely, it'd be like comparing it to the Alcohol Anonymous and the 12 Steps program. It just makes no sense, and it's unfair for him to even mention it. The view of the Hebrews, he states that because some of the writings of the Book of Mormon mimic writings, Hebrew writings, or even that of the Bible, what he failed to say is that many parts of the Book of Mormon quote from Isaiah. And you have to remember, Joseph Smith did very similar to the scholars. When they're unsure of the meaning of their interpretations, they went by their knowledge of what they have read themselves in Scripture and other forms of and translations of the Bible to try themselves to get to a proper translation. And Joseph Smith did this himself. He wasn't given the English written word. He was given the meaning of it and had to put it into the English word. And he did his best to do that. And I would challenge that still it's gone. It's confounded, as I said, scholars. And the Book of Mormon, to this date, by Christians, has not been disproven. And I wish I had more time to go into that, very similar to the Bible. But let me very quickly state that if you follow the same kind of logic, as I was saying, then you would have to discredit the New Testament, because you have very same word for word. You can look at Matthew 22, 23 to 30, versus Luke 20 to 27 to 35, written by 2 different apostles. It's the exact same scripture, word for word, because they were trying to express the same meaning. So either one used the words of the other. Micah 4 in the Old Testament, chapter 4, verses 1 to 3, versus Isaiah chapter 2, 2 to 4, the exact same scripture. 2 Kings 19:35 versus Isaiah 37:36, exact same scripture. So if you use the same role of logic, as Hal is attempting to use here, not trying to be critical, I'm just defending it a bit, then you would have to discredit parts of the Old Testament and the New for copying one another. That just makes no sense. They did that because the meaning was the same, and therefore they used the same language. And moving on very quickly, I've talked a bit about the Book of Mormon. Hal did not answer the issue of the organization of the church.
Like you'd have 2 minutes.
2 minutes. If he disbelieves that we should have prophets and apostles today, then he must also not have pastors, and I'm sure he has pastors in the Baptist church. He intends also to tear down the church by using one man, Joseph Smith, who I would testify to you was a prophet of the church, and his fruits certainly bear that, and I wish I could go more into that. But if we tear it down to one person, and again, not to be critical to the Baptist church, because every church has goodness to it, just one has the fullness. And I would say that that's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's not a pompous thing. It's just that if we believe that Jesus Christ established the true church on earth, then we must find it, and it can be here. And if we go by one person, I don't know if Hal's familiar with, I believe his name is Schaefer, and he brought a whole group down to Peru, Baptist, and he was compared next to Hitler, Hal, for what he did to the children and to the women. And rape and kill and how, I'm not trying to be critical of the Baptist church. I'm saying he committed atrocities and was compared to Hitler. So if you were going to tear down the church by one person, you would have to do that with Schaefer. The Catholic Church, they've had priests make ungodly decisions with respect to molestations of children. You could not tear down the Catholic Church in its whole and its beliefs because of the imperfections of the few. And again, it's not to say that Joseph Smith, he's not comparable to Schaefer and these other things, because Hal has not given any imperfections performed by Joseph Smith. Lastly, and I might go over just a hair, but I've been trying to answer the questions, is polygamy, which is the only thing he's argued that might be blasphemous. And I'm going to just very quickly give scriptures about polygamy. We know that polygamy is a biblical concept, not Book of Mormon. You find it in 2 Samuel 12, verse 8. David had many wives. Matthew 19, 1-9. Pharisees are talking about polygamy, not divorces. 2 Samuel 12, 18 gave David his house and wives. We know that Solomon practiced polygamy. 2 Samuel 13, 9 took his wife after staying at home. 1 Kings 15, 5. We have examples of polygamy in the Bible, and the list would go on with Solomon, David, Abraham, in fact, had many concubines and wives as well. That's not part of the Old Covenant or the Law of Moses. That was not considered it, and it's not taught to be, so it can't be argued that it ended with it. Polygamy is a commandment of God to bring up seed for His church when He commands it.
Okay.
And
thank you, Mike. You're
that's it.
Out of time.
I wish I had more time.
And what I'd like to do now, since you both have a lot of information,
Sure.
and done a wonderful job presenting your positions, and we're all grateful to that. I'm sure the viewers out there are glued to the screen to learn about this subject. What I'd like to do for now is, since we're going to run out of airtime, is just thank both of you for coming and presenting your positions. And what we could do, if you guys are willing, is take turns. You can each take turns questioning the other person, and then when we run out, we're just going to edit it right out of the show.
Sure. May I go first, since he's been going first?
Well, it's my turn.
I think it's only
Yeah,
fair. He's been going
fair.
first on every event here. I think it's my turn.
It's my turn, but you get to finish.
Okay, but we might run out of time. I might not be able to give an answer.
I'll be super quick.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Just real quick, you mentioned that someone commits adultery, they screw up, that's fine, but over and over and over and over and over and over is not fine. You said that I put the focus on Joseph Smith. You have to put the focus on Joseph Smith. If the testimony of the church is you don't go to heaven unless you go through Joseph Smith. You said that that Joseph Smith doesn't change the meaning of things. I want to give you a quote, Genesis 1:3. Yea, in the beginning I created the heaven and the earth, and upon which thou standest. That sounds like a change of translation to me.
Let me just, if I could, because I'll forget your questions, let me try to answer it. First, you're saying that we put the focus on Joseph Smith to be saved. How that's simply not true. And I say that in as loving way as I can. I don't know how you can have that concept. We simply believe he was a prophet, as we have a prophet today, who is President Monson of the church. However, the thing that the church has taught, that you might disagree with in fairness, Hal, is that we do believe prophets will assist, be called of God, as Christ was, and the prophets. You have to have the laying on the hands and receive that power and authority. And that's riddled throughout the entire New Testament.
It is.
And
where?
So that, you want to...
The laying on of hands will
laying
give you,
laying
give
on
you
of
the
hands.
power of a prophet.
You can't show one apostle that didn't receive the power and authority without the laying on of hands from either Christ or someone else who had it given to him and then to him. We don't even have to, but trust me, it's
Christ
there.
was baptized, but that's Jesus Christ.
Christ was baptized by John, of course, to fulfill, not because of sin, but to fulfill the
so all we have to do is get a group of guys
obedience.
together, do a laying on of hands, and we can have a prophet.
No, you have to have by someone who has the authority. And
Who
it's
has
kind of
the
like
authority?
a police officer can put on a uniform, Hal, and carry around a gun.
Yeah.
You could put on a uniform and carry around a gun. But you don't have the authority to arrest anybody.
And then,
you have to have that authority, Hal.
Yeah.
And arguably, we would say that the prophet Joseph Smith was given that authority, and it has passed that on.
By who?
We don't believe that Joseph Smith is a god, as you're trying to present.
Well, that's the way.
And
Brigham Young's words are as good as Scripture.
Brigham Young's words are not as good as Scripture.
He says they're as good as Scripture.
Unless it's revealed to him as revelation.
He says they're good as Scripture.
I'm not going to get into arguments with you. No
Over
prophet,
and over.
No,
Not even just one time, but
no prophet
here
that's
and
walked.
here
Let
and
me just say
here.
this: no prophet that's walked this earth has been perfect. They've had their own opinions and they've made their own mistakes. But when they're given revelation, or if they act in disobedience, then their calling is taken away or they're smitten, and that you have not shown. There's been no revelation that you've shown in Mormon Scripture,
These
King
guys,
James, Book of Mormon, or
these
Doctrine and
founders
Covenants.
like a mafia
You did not
group.
mention any of those.
They're like, well, we're
but
going to
you can
marry.
say and
Hey,
argue.
I like that girl. I'm going to marry the sister. But
And Joseph
55 wives.
And prophets give
57
prophecy.
wives.
Yep.
Wives. Yep. We don't argue polygamy. I'm not going to say to you that polygamy is not of God. You can't show me scriptural reference, yet I showed you scriptural reference where polygamy is biblical. Not from the Book of Mormon, Hal. You couldn't show me one scripture where it says polygamy is an abomination. You show me it.
I just did. The
No,
adultery.
you have not mentioned
and Matthew.
one.
And
Adultery
Matthew.
is not polygamy.
You have to.
Are you saying
you have to commit adultery
did
to
Abraham,
be a polygamist?
so Abraham committed adultery?
Yes. If he
You're
had,
calling Abraham, a prophet of the Old Testament, committed
yes,
adultery?
and you know why?
No, he did not. The only prophet
Do
who
you know
committed
what?
adultery
You
was
gotta hear
David.
me out. You
was
gotta hear
David
me
because
out.
he took a wife.
I knew you were
that
going to
God
bring
didn't
that up,
grant.
so I researched it. Listen, they went on
Now
their
you're
own.
really going off in left field somewhere.
Abraham's wife said, "Oh, I can't have a baby, so go ahead and take the maidservant." God didn't say take the maidservant.
He didn't do it because his wife said he could. God allowed it in scriptural support of that.
No.
Same with David.
Oh, my
and
word, I
Abraham
have it.
and Solomon. They're all instructed.
Look it up.
How they didn't just say I'm going to take concubines. It was if they
No.
did something that was disobedient, God would have taken their leadership and prophecy and the issue of being a prophet away. But aside from that, let me just very quickly state, because you've been able to say, I want to say that, as I'm going to sum up, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we believe in the Bible and the Book of Mormon as another testament of Christ. And as I've stated, they're from both parts of the world. And even you yourself admit that there are Indians here in America, some of Asian descent, and there's still DNA going on, whether they are descendants from Israelites or not. But we believe there were, and that they're both continents God communicated with both, and that's why we have both books. Neither one contradicts the other. We also believe in the organization of the church until there's a unity, and prophets and apostles, and we have bishops and deacons and priests. We have temples where ordinances can be done, which is biblical. We believe that marriages are forever, again, which is biblical. I can support anything I say from here. Families are forever, which is a wonderful concept, that you and your wife and your children and family can be together forever. And that's biblical.
And populate planets.
No, we're not
As soon
talking
as we get married in the temple.
Those are personal views that someone might say, just like in the Bible
It's
with
the
Jacob
Mormon
and the
view.
cattle and so forth, and say, yeah, there might be other worlds and other people on those planets. That doesn't take a prophet if when he gives his opinion out. Opinion and revelation are two different things.
Your beliefs are a spin-off of the main church.
Absolutely not. What do you mean?
Absolutely.
What main church?
Of the foundation of the church with Joseph Smith. Your beliefs are
We're not a
different from that.
spin-off. We are the church. Joseph Smith
That not
is the
what
same
you're
church that
telling me
he's
right now?
established. There's no spin-off.
There must
Everything
be a
I've said
spin-off.
to you are beliefs of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I will Joseph Smith was a prophet. And again, we have the Book of Mormon, we have the Bible, we have modern-day Scripture and Revelations, we have a prophet that stands at the head of the church today. The cornerstone is Jesus Christ. We have 12 apostles. We have temples. As I was stating, we have families are forever. The priesthood is an issue we didn't even discuss. Aaronic and Melchizedek in order to baptize and have the power and authority. Those are things that we have full belief in and are the fullness, Hal, of the gospel. That I would argue that your church, I don't want to say is missing, it's just missing the fullness. Your beliefs...
We're missing apostles.
Your beliefs are wonderful, and your beliefs are Christian, and I would never criticize them. However, there is a church, and I'm sure you would agree, that has the fullness of the gospel here on earth. And in order to find it, we have to search for it, we have to pray for it,
It's right here.
and read.
You're right.
It is. And none that's here can you take any scriptural reference, neither have you done so yet today. I've been the one proffering scriptural reference. You haven't used any scriptural reference to disprove any belief of the Mormon Church. Yet I can take this very same Bible and prove every belief.
Well,
Give me one.
I have said things, but you say
I've done
everything-
polygamy.
You say everything I say is a misquote. And when I talk
Because
about...
you're not using scripture, you're using discourses.
No.
and
I
opinions
am
and
using
papers and-
scripture.
That's not
Yea, in the
scripture.
beginning I created the heaven. All right, when you
Yeah, where did that
change-
come? What book does that come from?
That comes
now?
from the Book of Mormon.
That's not in the book. of
I mean
Mormon.
the Book of Abraham. No, I'm sorry. This is the JST version.
No, that's not.
It is the
You won't-
JST
Then you
version.
can't read from a paper.
Do you have
show
the
it to me-
JST
show-
version?
Show it to me where you see it.
It's in the JST. See, every time I present something to you, you say, well, it's not true because I say it's not true.
No.
But it is.
I would just like you to present it to me in scriptural form.
I don't have the JST.
something
I've
that-
never bought the
the
JST.
Joseph Smith-
We can go look it up
The
online.
Joseph
if
Smith
you want.
translation, I would argue anything that's in Joseph Smith translation of certain verses of the Bible, I would argue are 100% true and accurate. I'm not going to discredit the JST. The discourses that you're using from
Okay.
the Journal of Discourses from Brigham Young, the history, whatever else you're reading, I don't know if it's Mormon sources or anti-Mormon sources.
You're
In other
denying
words,
your
they're
own
not-
book. I don't understand that.
It's not
the
denying
Joseph
a
Smith
book, Hal.
translation.
It's not denying a book.
And Genesis 1:7, and I, God, said unto mine only begotten, which was with me from the beginning, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Actually, it's JST is, and it came to pass that the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Behold,
we've discussed, I can go right through this, you can stop me.
Yea, in the beginning I created the heaven.
We've discussed polygamy, the organization of the church, Joseph Smith. You'll know a prophet by things he prophesies. You know that Joseph Smith prophesied the Civil War? That's well known. You can find that on the internet.
Anybody
He
could say there's going to be a
prophesied it.
war.
No, and that was one of
I
the
think there's gonna
criticisms
be
that's
another war.
that's been disproven by scholars.
Am I a prophet?
Do you know where it's going to start? He said it would start in South
It's going
Carolina.
to start in the Middle East. I'm
He
good.
said it would start in South Carolina. And
It's
he
going
was
to
proved-
start in
he was proved to be
Israel.
right.
So there's going to be one in Israel.
Well, maybe you'll
I'm as good as a
you'll
prophet,
get
I
it.
think. Let's see, Genesis 2:5-6. This is from the JST.
Let me just
For
say
I,
this, Hal,
the
it's
Lord
never
God,
good to get into heated debates on religion because I respect what you believe. I truly do.
I'm concerned for your
I
soul.
you shouldn't
I'm concerned for your
How?
soul. That's
How?
why I'm here.
How you shouldn't be.
For you.
You're elevating yourself, and you shouldn't be.
No, I'm elevating this book. What the
Every
book says.
church has a piece of the truth, and every church has goodness. However, you would agree, whether it's the Mormon Church